Don't go to Can Jam, and I'm going to tell you why. So I recently picked this up, the Hifiman HE-1000SE, and also the Arya Organic. And this is just me again thinking I was completely fine with my end game, which was the MP and the Caldera, and some amps over here. But then I go to the Hi-Fi Man booth at Can Jam and I completely realize how much I miss the Hi-Fi Man sound. I originally had the Hi-Fi Man Arya, and no, this is the organic. I had the V1 on release, and that was like April 2019. Made it with the Electric V280. Amazing amp, amazing combination. I loved it, but you think you find the end game and then you go to Can Jam. I heard the original Meze Empyrean OG at the Audio Valve booth on a Audio Valve Solaris, but I was blown away. I love the mids, the soundstage, and the way it would handle the highs with zero sibilance. I was like, this is my next favorite headphone. Let me get that. Then I think I have my end game again, and then I go to the ZMF booth at One Can Jam, and this ZMF Caldera was mated to a Milo and I think some other amps, and I was like, this has better balance than the MP. So for me to afford this, I had to sell my Arya. And again, I thought I had my end game. So this latest Can Jam, the Hi-Fi Man booth, they had the HE-1000SE along with the Hi-Fi Man Arya Organic. And I tested those, fell in love all over again with that Hi-Fi Man sound. Just that super resolving, huge, immense sound stage, big open sound. So I said, okay, well, let's get these two and compare and see what the big differences are. Let's start with the Arya Organic. If you have the Arya, you know what sound it produces. I mentioned it before. Big, open, immense sound, highly resolving, amazing bass response, the impact, the slam, the depth, and the definition. And out of all these headphones here, it sounds visceral, raw, that energy that I talk about in other videos. It's very much here with the Arya Organic, I'd say much more so than the rest of them. But with that energy, just that high octane, pump through your eardrums, fun and engagement, it also brings headaches. I found I can only listen to this for, a handful of songs at best. And then before I know it, I'm like, okay, I need to take a break. It does get sibilant. It is messy. It's not the most defined when it comes to the others here. It doesn't have the best imaging, I'd say, when you're comparing to the HEKse SE, or as Wave Theory likes to call it, the HEKse. I think it's an amazing name. I'm just going to call it the HEKse then. But when you're comparing just these two, I'd say this Hi-Fi Man, the Arya Organic, it does tend to sound fuller. I was listening to John Mayer's album Paradise Valley, and this elevated mid-bass response just gives like an overall fuller, a sense of fullness that the HEKse does not. And I also wrote here in my notes, the Organics have a certain tactility that seems to put you closer to the music and gives the feeling that things sound more textured. But the decrease in timbre is noticeable. When you're talking about timbre, the HEKse just murders the Arya, in my opinion. Things sound so much more lifelike. And actually, when you're talking all of these headphones, the Arya has the biggest issue with timbre here. And again, this is a $1,300 headphone. This is what, $3,000. I know you can't buy this anymore, but the latest iteration of the Meze Empyreans are $3,000. And what the Caldera started around, what, $3,500. These used to be the same price, $3,500, $3,600, but now Hi-Fi Man has lowered the price to $2,000. Which is the only reason I have these. It made it super appetizing. But either way, let's move on now to the HEKse, the HE-1000SE, and just kind of talk about that. In my view, it is a very well refined version of the Arya Organic. The soundstage isn't as big, but the timbre is just so much better. Everything sounds much more lifelike. Instruments sound like much closer to the original sound of the actual instrument, in my view, than the Arya Organic. It also has the benefit of having better and closer attention to the mids, while showcasing less of the extremes on the ends of the spectrum. This is unlike the Arya, which presents or accentuates them fully. So the top of the top, or the highest of the highs in the treble, you're going to hear them better on the Arya Organic, or at least you'll notice them better on the Arya Organic versus the HE-1000SE. Again, this focuses on the mids. So in my view, I like that presentation. Another thing to mention, there's less air or overall sense of space than the Arya Organic. This one just has superior, I don't know if it's superior. It just has a different soundstage where it's much more open than this, but it almost sounds just too much when you're comparing. I think Passion for Sound said it best. The HEKse just has this sphere of a soundstage where everything sounds more self-contained versus this to me is like a big open concert hall where the sound travels far and it bounces off the walls and it comes back and hits you and just says, wow, this is an amazingly huge space. And this feels like in a not much more, but a more intimate setting. So the soundstage, and again, if you want that high energy, that soundstage lends itself to that and just makes things like EDM just sounds bigger and more open in a big concert space than it does in the HEKse. We also have to talk about the S sound or just sibilance in general, how the letter S sounds on these headphones. Things are super detailed, but also less harsh than the Arya Organic. Here you get a bit more sibilance than you do from this. So the HEKse is just the king there. Bass seems to have that much more impact on the Arya O, but more definition on the HEKse. So again, if you want an experience that's just high energy, you want to get into the music, you want to dance, if you're just listening to like EDM, and I love EDM and a lot of like pop electronic songs, the Arya Organic may be the more engaging headphone, but to me it's not the most true to life. To me that the HEKse does that better. For folk and jazz, I prefer it on the HEKse. Again, this is no slouch when it comes to pop and EDM. It sounds a bit different than the Arya Organic. I don't think you can lose with either. My personal preference goes with the HEKse, and I'll be keeping this one and returning the Arya Organic. But your mileage may vary. This is about $700 more. Okay, and now while we have it here, let's compare it to the Meze Empyrean. Beautiful headphone, beautifully constructed, very, very comfortable. These are comfortable too. They're very light, as you know, probably lighter than the Empyrean, which is great for putting it on your head for long listening sessions. Now, as for the sound, the MP, and at least the OG, if you're able to get your hands on the original version, it's more refined, it's more nuanced with that satisfying sense of fullness that I talk about previously in other videos. It's just so full. The elevated mid bass, it gives you just like this warm wrap around your head feeling, which I prefer. It does have excellent bass response with an accurate soundstage, all while delicately rolling off those ear-biting highs. This is just the hallmark quality of the Empyrean. You don't get any headaches here, but you do kind of miss the energy of the hi-fi mans, I guess you would say in this case. It is a different presentation there. And let's dig into the mid bass. It's not as cohesive and definitely not as separated. It's a bit more bundled and dare I say compressed here when it comes to the presentation. But I personally can forgive this quality because it adds to that fullness effect. But I realize many people complain about it, and they do have the Empyrean too, which deals with that issue, and I know a lot of reviewers love it. I tried it at Can Jam. I'm sticking with these. It's still my personal preference, but your mileage may vary. Now, all that said, I was hoping that I would save money by saying the difference between this, the Empyrean, and the Hi-Fi Man cans just isn't worth the cost. I can save $2,000 and I'll just stick with the Empyrean. But after comparing any one of these two, I need to keep one because it's just so much more resolving. The soundstage and the presentation is just that much more different than the Empyrean. So I wanted to keep one of the Hi-Fi Man cans. And then let's quickly go over the Caldera, move it a little bit closer. What can I say about the Caldera? There is a mix between the nuanced softness and warmth of the MP-OGs right over here, while retaining more of that upper frequency energy and resolution that the Hi-Fi Mans provide. So there's a bit more balance in the Caldera's kind of just shine there. You don't get the upper frequency resolution of the Hi-Fi Mans, in my opinion, but things aren't rolled off. They're just a bit more rounded. Now the soundstage, it cannot match the Hi-Fi Mans, and it's even a bit smaller than the Empyreans, so keep that in mind. But the mids, they also seem a bit more recessed. I know, again, I'm talking about the Empyrean and the HEKse. Definitely when you're comparing to the Arya Organic, I think the mids shine better on the Caldera. But I do have to mention, I did feel a bit further away from the music versus the SE, which puts me right in front of the musicians. And the Arya, it just seemed to put me right in the middle of everything. So just comparing sound stages there. As for the timbre with the Calderas, it's excellent. I absolutely love it here. I think I am going to give the edge though to the SE. That's just one of its hallmark qualities. It just does it so well, and that would be my preference. It doesn't really destroy the Calderas, but it's just that much better. It's just slightly better for me. And my last note here regarding the Calderas, there's less of a presence or just less energy compared to the other headphones here. The presentation of the Calderas is a tad more forgiving, which actually makes most music very enjoyable. So, you know, you have rock, anything from rock to EDM to folk, classical. Everything sounds excellent with the Calderas, you know, whereas the HEKse, I'd be like, oh, I want to listen to something with a bit more energy. The Arya would do, or maybe even the Empyrean. So if you want more warmth, the Caldera, again, just that balance. It seems to do it all, and it does it with grace. And I don't even want to say jack of all trades, because it's very, very, very good at doing most things. And let's get back to the Hifiman. I am going to keep the HEKse, as I said before. And as for the amps that I'm using here, I have a bunch. My next video is going to kind of compare all those. I love it with the Past Labs HPA1. I thought, you know, considering the higher resolution, high energy, Hifiman sound, it doesn't have as much warmth as an MP. I would love it with the Milo, the V222 or the V280. And here's the Denafrips Artemis on the bottom. It's also a very warm amp. But my preference here with the HPA1, I just love it. It's my daily driver recently. It's very resolving, as you could imagine. This is a very resolving amp, and it has those second order harmonics, which just gives this lovely sound to the presentation. And mated with the HEKse, it's just something that's very, very hard to deny, and I can't put it down. So that's been my preference as of late. If you want vocal clarity, if you want superior timbre, I think the Milo takes it. This Vioelectric is very good for black backgrounds, the V222, and warmth, a combination of both. So you can't lose with that either. But my preference as of late, again, is the HPA1. Okay, now I said it already. I decided to keep the HEKse over the Arya Organic, and let me just quickly sum up this video and tell you why. There's this song Arizona Skies by Los Lobos. Listening to that the first time and comparing it, it just had me choose the HEKse over the Arya. The timbre was just unmatched, and the bass sounded that much more controlled with better definition on the HEKse here. The Arya did have this better open and airiness factor to it, as I mentioned before. You know, that amazing soundstage just makes up for a ton, but in the end, I just wanted that refinement and that superior timbre of the HEKse. So yeah, overall, as amazing as the Arya Organic is, it's just that lack of cohesion and the HEKse's refinement. It just had me choose that in the end. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I know that I breezed through that really fast. But stay tuned, subscribe if you haven't already. I'm going to go through these amps, and then we can chat about that. All right, so long, everyone.